Tina, I know you have a very important story I'd love to hear, and I think the rest of us would like to hear it too. Can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Sure. And thanks for letting me come on to tell it. I was good friends with Brandy Vaughan, who had learntherisk.org, who passed on December 7th unexpectedly. Her background is that she was working for Merck Pharmaceuticals, and they were selling the drug Vioxx years ago, which was killing hundreds of thousands of people. And she saw behind the scenes how they just continued to push sales regardless of the findings that were happening. And so she realized how corrupted the industry was, and she got out of it. She felt like she had blood on her hands, but went on to live her life, had a baby, never had vaccinated her baby because she had, dove into that subject, but she wasn't speaking out back then. And then back in 2015, California was trying to pass a bill, SB 277, to take away our rights to exemptions there. And that's when I kind of jumped in to start speaking out. And the first time I dabbled in politics, and never again. And I ended up meeting Brandy through groups online. And I first started noticing her and paying attention to her because she was speaking out against the controlled opposition within the movement. And she grabbed my attention because I already was having a lot of intuitive feelings about some of the people in the movement who are like so-called leaders, who would say, no, don't talk about, it being poison, or don't talk about it being toxic. Let's just talk about choice. And I would think, you can't tell. I wish someone had told me the truth, and I'm going to speak the truth. And so I already was kind of suspicious of some of these people, but had never heard of anything like controlled opposition. And one day, Brandy went into a group where it was a huge group in California, and she started to name names, call out the controlled opposition, and was like basically under fire because everybody was attacking her. Because some in the group, when they're known leaders, they become almost like celebrities in the movement, and you dare not say anything bad against these people. And I thought to myself, everything she says makes sense to me, and it's what I've already been feeling, and she's got no valid reason to be doing what she's doing right now unless it's the truth, because it's not going to gain her popularity. And so then I was taking on a rally at the Golden Gate Bridge in California with another friend of mine, Tessa, who had talked me into it. And I was feeling overwhelmed, and it was over my head what I was getting into, but nobody else had stepped up to take this on. And all of a sudden, Brandy Vaughan reached out to me and asked if I needed help. She said, I'll help get the speakers. I'll basically do forward some of the money to get the speakers and everything. And so I welcomed her to join us to help with that rally. And from then on, we became really close friends. And I worked with her on Learn the Risk right out of the gate as soon as she started that platform. And we became like family. We vacationed together, hung out together. And for Thanksgiving this year, she reached out to me and asked what we were doing for Thanksgiving. And I was awaiting becoming a grandma around that time, so we had no plans to leave. And I welcomed her to come, spend Thanksgiving, her and her son, with us. So we had a great time. We were, playing games, eating. Like, there were zero signs of her having any pain. She was herself. We talked about stuff about, Learn the Risk. We talked about the movement. Her website had been sabotaged not long before, and she was still trying to get the new one up and started. We talked about controlled opposition. We talked about people she still didn't trust, although she hadn't been as vocal anymore. But because it was out there already, she just kind of let that simmer down. But we had all these conversations. She was doing great. And 9 days later, she was found dead in her home. And as soon as she was found, it took about 24 hours before I found out about it. But there were people within the movement that she didn't trust that knew about it right away. And out of the gate, they got to the person that was with her son. They managed to get text messages on her phone that said something about her having a sore stomach, and they ran with this narrative that it's her gallbladder. Nothing to see here, it's her gallbladder. Well, back in December 2019, she had done a post, so just a year before her passing, she had done a post outlining if I were to pass away, an untimely death, and listed what she would want done. She said, I am not suicidal. I am in perfect health. Like, she detailed it. I would want to have fundraising done. I have a team of close friends that will look after this. And so I, out of the gate, started a fundraiser, and it got up to about $60,000. At the point of about $20,000, one of these people that I didn't trust, who had clawed into it quickly, she started reaching out to me and saying, oh, all that money has to go to the person that has her son. And I was like, no, that this is, if there's needs for him, up front, yes, of course, I'm going to take care of him first. But this is to get the private investigation taken care of. So they sabotaged that first fundraiser. The $60,000, I never saw a penny of it. That went away, and I had to start a new fundraiser. And I've had to unravel them basically trying to poison my name to the family in Europe that's on the son's father's side. And, others in the local town that didn't know me personally, these people through the movement just got in there and immediately started to cause problems for me that I've had to slowly undo and prove myself. She also made me the legacy holder for her Facebook page. So I've had to throw that out to show she wouldn't give this to someone she didn't trust. And it's just been a lot, layers and layers of confusion and hurdles that I've been trying to overcome. But we are getting there slowly, and donations are back up to we're at about 40,000, I think. And we still need more. We are moving forward with the private investigation, and we're not going to give up. I mean, I'm working hard to honor the wishes that she laid out, that she wanted to have happen in the event of her untimely death. And I don't buy the gallbladder story, not for a minute, because she was a very organic eater. She was with me 9 days before and had zero signs of pain. It doesn't add up. Anyone that has, critical thinking skills or can use some common sense can see that something is off here.
And what happened to the sorry to break in here, what happened to the Vioxx? Didn't they reinstate it or something after her death?
Yeah, 2 days after her death, I started to hear about that. Yeah, that I think they've relabeled it, and that was coming out. I also have heard from people who've reached out wondering, I guess there's some lawsuits that are coming up, and I had people questioning me if she had been asked to testify, and they said even if she hadn't been yet, she probably was going to be asked to testify. So there's, layered reasons as to why her untimely death may have occurred.
But Can you also get into some of the dirty tricks that they used on Brandy while she was alive?
She has a video actually online, I can't think of the name of it now, where she goes through and explains what they did to intimidate her. They had broke into her house, and they moved her. They didn't steal anything. They just did things to basically intimidate her. They moved her computer where it was hidden on the microwave into the middle of her kitchen floor. They left a stool by one of the windows near the front, which is the only window that had the blinds open, as a sign to show that they're watching her. In a lot of her videos, she used to say that she felt like a sitting duck, just waiting for them to do something. And they left a statue of a duck on her patio table in the backyard. She's had her accounts had been sabotaged more than once, her bank accounts. She's had the website under attack more than once as well. There was one time I think we were on the phone, and she was just going back to her car, and she panicked because in the car door there was a playbill from a play, and I can't think of the name of the play that it is, but it was basically a picture of a noose from this play. And I said, well, does anybody else have that on their car? Thinking it has to be something else. She said, no, hers was the only car that had this playbill tucked into the door handle of her car. So yeah, she was very, very, had post-traumatic stress disorder, and was, she lived kind of paranoid because, well, rightly so, she always felt like she was under attack. And then it is under,
sorry.
Oh, sure.
A lot of us here do a lot of research on what conspiracies are behind some of the events that we see, but all the research I have to do is absolutely third hand by a long way. And you're seeing this stuff in action. She saw this stuff in action. Do you have a sense, you use the word they, I use the word they all the time, but they can mean different kind of subgroups of a bigger group. Did you have a sense of who they really are and how far and wide they went, how they coordinated? Is it corporation just the big pharma, or do you feel like there were government entities that were complicit, or media that doesn't pick this stuff up? Do you have a sense of how it really works?
Well, I think all of the above. It's all linked together, and there are key players in every corner of what's going on. When I say they, I'm usually meaning, those connected to the pharmaceutical industry, but that does spin into, when I say controlled opposition, there are people within the movement that we can't trust. They are in there. They do a great job. They're great leaders. They always tend to have the funding to be traveling everywhere. They are great speakers, but there will be something about their messaging that is a little off. It will be a little bit confusing, so that, they'll use choice instead of, just really explaining and educating on what's in a vaccine so people can make the right choice. And then, and it's, even with this investigation that's going on, I went to Santa Barbara to the sheriff's department, and I left my name and all my information, and I said I had already called and left a message, and the lieutenant that I was talking to says, you mean that, like, the leading sheriff hasn't reached out to you yet? He even seemed surprised, and I said no. So I left my name and number, and he goes, okay, he'll get back to you. Still hasn't got back to me. I mean, and then they put an article out into the media saying, oh yeah, there will be a thorough investigation. I know firsthand there's no thorough investigation going on. There's someone that's in her house cleaning things out of her house. They've never taken the cell phone. It's not being investigated, yet that's what they put into the media. So yeah, and there's, several layers of key people that will, push forward messaging that isn't the truth. So what I was going to say is, learntherisk.org, the reason I was so behind what she was doing is I had already thought of doing something similar but not as big. But there are tools on Learn the Risk that are information cards. You can either print out flyers or buy things from online that have the information of what's in the vaccine, and people need to start getting out there themselves and doing it. It shouldn't just be a few people that are leaders. Everybody has to figure out their own leader inside themselves. If they're too shy to go approach somebody in person, then stick a card or a flyer on someone's car next to you every time you park your car. Stick a card inside of a gas station credit card slot every time you get gas. If everybody that is aware of the truth and awake to the truth started to do these things, we can touch people, the hearts and minds of people, one person at a time, in day-to-day living. We don't need these echo chambers online where we're all repeating to the same followers most of the time. We get a few new people, but I think we really need more people to take what they're learning and get out there and touch the people that they're in a community with. We need to wake up our friends and our neighbors around us, and they need to hear that message usually 8 to 15 times before they're actually going to have their aha moment. So the more people getting out there and doing it instead of waiting for someone else to do it, and you can do it at any level. If you're shy, then you just, you put it on a car. I hand out people. I see somebody, and now it's about masks. We'll do it on any subject. But I'll hand a flyer about the masks to someone at a store. I just try to relate to people that I'm, coexisting with in my day-to-day world. There's too many people that are waiting for someone else to take the lead when we have to start stepping it up ourselves, I think, in our own communities.